listening to a podcast from The Word.
Mark, I've got a stag waddy. It's not my own work. It's from John Williams in Wrexham, although I've added something to it. And John has been going through a load of old Melody Makers Club calendar from the 6th of November, 1971. And he says there's loads of recognisable names. Of course, Atomic Rooster were playing at the Starlight Rooms in Boston for 60p. Judas Priest were playing the Temple for 60p. And Pato were playing 1832 Windsor for 40p. That's a bargain. Anyway, here's a bunch of other names, all of which are kind of roughly kind of pigs and pork related. Okay, Alec, are you ready?
I've got to guess how many of these are fictitious, or I've just got to work out the fictitious ones.
I got five. There's one fictitious one, one ringer.
Okay, go on.
Here we go. Pigsty.
Right.
Fat Grapple. Hogg. Makin Bacon. And Life Blood, spelt B-L-U-D. Pigsty, Fat Grapple, Hogg, Makin Bacon, and Life Blood. Which one, Mark Ellen, is the ringer?
Well, I'm fairly confident that it's not Makin Bacon, because Makin Bacon was a kind of hilarious sort of student poster, wasn't it, at the time? So it won't be that, I'm sure. I don't think it's Hogg either, because Hogg is a classic kind of 70s rock band name. Lifeblood is just not quite characterful enough to have been made up as a ringer, so I think it must be real. So we're down to Fat Grapple and Pigsty. Fat Grapple is just, it's so like kind of, it's like, there were loads of bands with names like that, weren't there? Fat Grapple. Crabby Appleton, it's that kind of thing. I think Pigsty is real. I think that's the fictitious one, is Fat Grapple. It's just simply brilliant.
Well, you're wrong, and John Williams and I win, because there was Pigsty, there was Fat Grapple, there was Hogg, there was Life Blood, but what there wasn't was Makin Bacon. Which you correctly identified. I think I'm right in saying used to be a lewd illustration on the front of a T-shirt.
It was.
Where you would see two pigs having sexual congress. And the hilarious slogan was Makin Bacon.
Makin Bacon, which is meant to kind of terrify old age pensioners when you walk down the street. It probably did. I don't know.
We were so easy to amuse in those days,
know.
weren't we? Okay, so I win that one.
You win. Okay. Now, the guy got one too, which is a reprise of a sort, actually, because Mousse Allain, the wonderful illustrator and humorist and cartoonist, I'm sure you're aware of him, who I follow on Twitter, he was just tweeting some pictures of just illustrations he's done for places in southwest England, like Dowlish Ford and Halesbury Plunket. And I remember this is a long time ago, we once did Cotswold Village or Jamaican DJ.
Oh, right.
And I thought we should do a little reprise. So I give you, Dave, a quaintly titled place in Somerset or venerable reggae musician. Okay? 10 of them. Some are reggae musicians, some are places in Somerset.
Right.
Okay, the first one is Nempnett Thrubwell. That is Nempnett Thrubwell.
I give in already. I don't know.
Nempnett Thrubwell. It's a place on the western edge of Bath.
Very good.
There you go. Okay. Hinton Blewett. Sorry, Hinton Blewett. Let's get that right.
My dad was stationed there during the war. No, I've no idea. Go on.
It's 5 miles north of Wells.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. Okay. Glaister Fagan.
I've got to guess that's a reggae musician.
He's a member of Matumbi. Yeah. Loxley Gishy.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Loxley Gishy.
Reggae
he's a
musician.
Guitarist in the Cimarrons.
Very good.
Okay, we got a few more. Leafy Somerset Hamlets or legendary dubmeisters. Sock Dennis.
That's got to be a reggae musician.
No, that's a historic manor in the parish of Ilchester.
Can you tell me the way to Sock Dennis?
Sock Dennis.
That's fantastic.
Oh, no, it's a good.
We're playing Sock Dennis in the cricket next weekend.
Or anyone for Sock Dennis, in fact, I think.
Yeah.
Curry Mallet. Curry Mallet.
Oh, Somerset.
Yeah, 7 miles east of Taunton. Gallimore Sutherland.
That is a reggae musician.
Yeah, right. He's the rhythm guitarist of the Gladiators. Milton Hamilton. I rented a cottage there once. He's a singer in Third World.
Oh, very course he is.
Yeah. Burton Pinsett.
Reggae musician.
No, it's 6 miles west of Somerton. And my favourite, actually, is she's Huish Champflower.
Wow.
That's Huish Champflower, just tuning up his massive amplifier.
Go on. I give in.
It's 10 miles north of Wellington near Blackdown Hills. So there we are. It's good, isn't it?
Brilliant.
It works. It works.
So if anybody's got any ideas for Stackwaddy games, please send them to the usual address, whatever that usually is. They seem to find us one way or another, don't they?
They do. So, they're very welcome.
They're very welcome. What do we have to talk about? I guess Roger Waters. Roger Waters is a very curious show at the London Palladium. You read about this.
But Roger Waters is just so dependable, isn't he? He never lets you down. Last week we were talking about all the other grim things he'd done, but this was hilarious. I saw this too. Yeah, it was the audience. He was playing the Palladium. The audience was expecting his version of Dark Side of the Moon, but instead, for the first, I think, hour, they got him reading from his unpublished book, the title of which supposedly is Dark Side of the Moon: Memoirs of a Lanky Prick. And I've got a little quote here. He said, read out pages of notes about his pets, including a duck called Donald, which he discussed for 20 minutes, leaving onlookers stunned. Waters went on to impersonate the likes of Bruce Forsyth and Max Bygraves in an attempt to deliver some stand-up comedy. He reportedly told his audience to fuck off. That's good, isn't it? And the show ended an hour later than it was meant to, which, of course, when you get to our age, that's a bad thing. If you're 18 and the show extends by an hour, you think, fantastic, value for money. This is brilliant. I'll walk home. But, everyone was massively inconvinced and horrified by it, actually.
Because as we've discovered through our Word in Your Ear evenings, the definition of a popular evening out for people over a certain age is it starts early and it finishes soon afterwards. That's basically
almost immediately afterwards. After they've played your two favourite songs.
Yes, nobody thanks you for something going on for an hour too long, particularly a Roger Waters show. Do you know what the thing that really offended me most about this? And it's difficult because there are many things that you could be offended by. There was a wide variety of elements there. I felt reading your unpublished memoirs from your laptop.
From your laptop.
Is probably the idlest possible excuse for entertainment that's ever been laid before the public.
Well, so this is unpublished.
From your bloody laptop.
Yeah.
Come on. It doesn't matter. If you were Oscar Wilde, that would be dull. But you're not. You're Roger Waters.
You're Roger Waters.
For goodness sake.
It's also unpublished, so it indicates that they're probably the very first things that he's thought of, that he's hammered down, which in the normal scheme of things, 98% of which will be ejected, will be abandoned. But no, Roger Waters' opinion of his own worth is so enormous that he's happy to entertain people for 1 hour with a load of kind of poorly thought through jottings. It's astonishing, isn't it?
It is genuinely breathtaking that there is nobody in a position to intercede and say, that thing you're thinking of doing tonight, just don't do it. Please don't do it at all. But reading from your laptop, I don't care who you are, it's not interesting. And it set me to thinking, who are the rock stars that should be allowed, licensed to actually entertain the audience with their spoken words. Who are they, Mark? Go on. Who are they? I got one nomination, and I can only think of one. Shall I tell you my nomination?
You mean spontaneously off the top of their head?
Well, you see, there's the fundamental point. Anybody who's doing it spontaneously off the top of their head is fooling themselves that it's going to work, because what we know is it's all preparation. Doesn't it? It doesn't matter whether it seems prepared or not.
You can pass it off as spontaneous. Exactly.
It's got to be prepared, whatever it is. And so the only person I've ever seen who can do this and do it reliably, brilliantly, is Bruce Springsteen. And clearly Bruce Springsteen
works at it very
sits
hard.
At home and works at it like crazy. It's all bits. It's all bits he's done before. And he takes this bit and he puts it together with that bit and a third bit, and he builds it into something. He's not just setting off into uncharted territory, you know what I mean? And he wouldn't dream of reading anything. He probably wouldn't read off a piece of paper, let alone a laptop, for crying out loud.
That really is the ultimate insult.
Absolutely. Because you haven't even bothered to print it out, you idle sod.
But Bruce Springsteen has a very, very rigorous idea of what constitutes entertainment, isn't he? Everything he does is pared down, isn't it? And as you say, thought through and tried out and tinkered with and tuned up.
It's like the thing it most resembles is a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
A stand-up comedian, they talk about their act as a series of bits. And this leads to that. And it has to climax like that. And I have to do it in exactly that fashion.
Yeah.
Otherwise it won't work. I
won't try something. The punchline, the applause line, then you got the topper. And the topper, you make another joke over the top, and then a third joke over the top of the second one.
People have worked out that stuff in front of crowds. They haven't just set off to do it for the first time. Well, everything has a first time, I suppose. But anyway, Roger Waters.
Also at the Palladium, 60 years ago today, I think, the day we're recording this, October the 13th, was the Beatles. It was the night that people claimed that the concept of Beatlemania was invented, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When they played the Palladium and the reaction by the crowd, and they had to try and get them to calm down because they couldn't play, and the reaction outside when they left the venue, etc. That's when the papers kind of, coined the expression Beatlemania. On the bill, compare Bruce Forsyth with his ever popular audience participation game Beat the Clock, American balladeer Brooke Benton, British comic and singer Des O'Connor.
Well,
that's a good night out, surely.
Is that the full extent of the bill?
I think it was. Maybe there's no other musical act. I don't know, actually.
Do you remember Beat the Clock? Which was
I don't.
Do you know?
No.
Is a whole segment.
We didn't get telly till 1966, so I missed out on an awful lot of stuff. I had a deprived childhood.
Did you hear that Kennedy was shot? Do you know about that?
We did hear about it.
Went to the moon as well. Oh, that was a bit later.
That was later.
But they used to have one segment of Sunday night at London Palladium used to be Beat the Clock. One whole 10-minute segment. And basically, you used to get a husband and wife from the audience to do stupid, pointless games with very low-tech equipment. Absolutely extraordinary. I was looking at one the other day from the early 60s and thinking, my God, we were easily entertained at those days. How did anybody tolerate that kind of thing?
What kind of things did they do?
Can you toss this ping pong ball into this basket and all that? I mean, you wouldn't believe how a party of 4-year-olds would tear you limb from limb nowadays if you proposed entertaining them in that kind of fashion. But no, it worked in those days. So compared to that, the Beatles doing From Me to You and Twist and Shout or whatever was extraordinary entertainment. And of course, they were back there about a month later, weren't they? A Royal Command performance.
Royal Command performance, yeah. I think, it was a month later, I think. By which time they were just massive already, weren't they? I wish the Palladium show was on film, because you can watch the Royal Variety Show on on YouTube, but the Palladium isn't available, I don't think.
Oh, it's probably just been lost, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But the reason they got, but that Ed Sullivan booked them to appear on his show in February the following year, when the famous night that they broke America, was all because he'd heard that, there were all these groups were happening in Britain, Jerry and the Pacemakers and all these people. But he wanted the one that the Queen liked, because that was the way that the story had made its way to the States. That mop tops get royal seal of approval. You know what I mean? So he's saying,
which these days would be the worst possible recommendation. It's like when prime ministers do their kind of desert island discs, and no matter how much thought and effort they put into it, whatever groups they nominate, their career is going to be slightly tarnished by it.
Yeah, your heart would sink, wouldn't it, if a prime minister?
Prince Charles's favourite. There's King Charles's favourite act.
Oh God, favourite Coldplay track. No, it's not going to work, is it?
The Word Podcast, prime cuts of popular culture served fresh each week.
We have various things upcoming. Well, we just put out, actually, a couple of podcasts. We did Will Sargent from Echo and the Bunnymen, who was terrific, actually. Really lovely, interesting character. And a really well-written book. Two books, 2 Sunday Times bestsellers. And lots of good stories about just growing up in Liverpool in the 60s and 70s. School days, brilliant description of school days. Absolutely, he was extraordinary. And we did, the other day, we did Nick Banks of Pulp. It was great, wasn't he, Dave?
He was very good indeed.
Really, such a good talker. He's so upbeat and funny, and I'd express himself so well. It's really lovely stories. Just stuff about, what it's like being in a group that takes ultimately 15 years to have any kind of success. He joined after 7 years. He's had 7 years waiting for them to be successful, and what that felt like when it happened, and the terrible, crushing horror of being number 2 in the charts, which is simultaneously thrilling and also ghastly to be not number 1 when number 1 is Robson and Jerome.
Yeah.
And a very good account of Jarvis's moment at the Brit Awards versus Michael Jackson, which is he made a really good point. He said it was really good for the band, really bad for Jarvis, and the effect that all that had on Jarvis's life. So he was good. And next week, we're doing Simon Spencer. He's talking about his book about the immediate record label, and mostly about Andrew Loog Oldham, that'll be interesting, won't it? That's a story. Loog Oldham, isn't it?
Still
My
is, isn't
God.
He still is, Andrew Loog Oldham. Still with us. And I once spent, I once spent a very interesting few days in, where was it? Stockholm, with Andrew Oldham a few years ago. Me and my wife, we were both booked on the same conference. And so we had a couple of meals out. Terribly entertaining, Jeff.
God, that must have been fun. What did you talk about?
Just absolutely everything. He's just,
indiscreet, I hope.
Yeah, well, music business is not desperately full of people with a kind of wide range of interests, but he has a wide range of interests, no doubt about it. I can't remember. He told me all kinds of things. And one of the things that stuck in my head, I'm sure I've said this before, is he used to go and see his mother when he was like 18, 19. He used to go and see his mother on Sunday. She lived in Hampstead. And he says that was the days when you went to Sunday lunch with your mother, and then there was nothing else to do. It was Tony Hancock, Britain, Sunday afternoon at home, that kind of thing. And then Peter Jones, who worked at the Record Mirror, had said to him, there's a band playing, and they play every Sunday afternoon at the Station Hotel in Richmond. You should go and see them. They might want a PR or something. And he wasn't going to go until he looked at the train map, and he realised that the train went straight from Hampstead Heath Station straight to Richmond, as it still does.
Still does today.
The North London line. And so he thought, all right, I'll give that a go. And so he got on the train, and it deposited him outside Richmond Station. He went straight into the Station Hotel, and there's Mick Jagger, Brian Jones, Keith Richards, Bill Wyman, and Charlie Watts. and the future is made.
And that was him seeing the Stones. He started managing the Stones when he was 19, so he probably, I don't know, maybe saw them when he was 18 or whatever. But, before that, he'd already worked at Mary Quant. He worked with a mod fashion designer in Carnaby Street. He'd done the PR for the Beatles. Him and Tony Calder had done PR, hadn't they, for Sam Cooke, Little Richard, Bob Dylan, Phil Spector. Absolutely incredible. The other thing that struck me was the number of things that he'd done that must have directly affected the success of the group. And, one of those, getting rid of Stu, the piano player, which is astonishing.
Absolutely. First man ever to be thrown out of a group because his face literally did not fit. And if you go back and look at the pictures of the 6-piece Rolling Stones with Stu, you can see the truth of that. He was also the person who kind of made the Rolling Stones something that they would not have been without him. Hear me out, which was hip. Without Andrew Loog Oldham, the Rolling Stones are Manfred Mann. Am I right in that?
I really thought of it like that. Well, he changed the way they looked, didn't he? And also the material they played,
More than that, the key thing is go and read the sleeve notes of the early Rolling Stones records. They're all written by Andrew Oldham.
Yeah.
They're all kind of Jack Kerouac knockoffs. And, I can't remember is it Out of Our Heads, where he does it in kind of Kerouac style. And there's this line about, if you haven't got enough bread to buy it, knock down blind man and steal his money. It's something like that, which caused considerable controversy in 1964 or 5 or whenever it was.
Imagine doing it now.
He did all that. It wasn't Mick Jagger. It wasn't Brian Jones. It wasn't Keith Richards. He's the person who gave them kind of sprinkling of chic and danger. It was all his projection.
Wasn't it him that made the decision that when Keith Richards always brilliantly put the black hat and the white hat? He said the Beatles were wearing the white hats, the kind of white cowboy hat we talked about. Beatles were wearing a white hat. Our option was the black hat. But I think that was Andrew Oldham's decision. Andrew Oldham was the one the architect of all those headlines, like, would you let your daughter go out with a Rolling Stone? That was him, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Talking of Andrew Oldham, I've just been talking to Peter Watts, who's got a book about Denmark Street, London's Tin Pan Alley. And on the cover of that is a splendid photograph of Andrew Oldham walking down the Street of Dreams. He's just got out of his limousine, and his driver, he looks like a bit of rough trade. He's leaning on his limousine down the street, and it's a complete wish fulfillment fantasy that whole photo session is, because Andrew Oldham was the first manager I was aware of who was kind of as hip as the group. Brian Epstein never was, didn't attempt to be. And Andrew Oldham definitely was.
But that wasn't that part of the whole idea, particularly behind Immediate, that that the general feeling was that middle-aged record executives were ripping off and fleecing 19-year-old R&B stars or whatever, and he was going to come in at the same age as them and give them a fair deal.
Well, except I don't think there's any indication that he did that at all, actually, because most of the acts who were signed to Immediate would say that they were ripped off and fleeced, this time by people wearing fashionable clothes. That was the way it went in the future. Very few people emerged from Immediate feeling
Simon Spence,
totally good about it. Go on.
Yeah, he sent me various stats. They don't appear in the book, actually. One was a detail of all the Small Faces royalties. And they're really, really detailed. It's all about the quantity of records, the amount of royalties they got in Australia and Japan and places like that. I thought it was incredibly little. I mean, Tin Soldier sold over 20,000 copies in Australia, and yet they get £325 for it. See, that seemed to me, which is the equivalent of what's that, $6,000 today, something like that, $6,500. Seems incredibly little, really.
Well, artist royalties were very, very low in those days. What were the Beatles getting? It was just pennies, wasn't it? That was the way it worked. And of course, the other thing was, in the case of the small faces, that all the bills that they ran up on their fabulous clothes and their lifestyles and so forth, they were paying.
They came out their advance.
That entirely came out of their end.
I know.
Because that still goes on to this day.
So Small Face, well, Steve Marriott certainly had two kind of episodes of that, didn't he? Because he kind of felt he got ripped off by the Small Face, then went into Humble Pie. The end of Humble Pie, just the same thing. They thought they made a fortune. They were selling out these huge venues, they were selling lots of records. At the end of it, he was talking about the land he was possibly going to buy and all things. And when the money came in, there was just nothing, and he was just mortified, never really recovered from it.
I was watching an interview the other day. You can find it online with Howard Stern did with Dave Grohl. And Dave Grohl is a fantastic interviewee. And he was saying, how much did you make out of Nirvana? Because Nirvana were the last huge selling physical product band, probably, whatever Nevermind sold. Multiple tens of millions of copies. And he said, you must have made, I can't remember the actual figures. He said, you must have made 80 million out of that. You didn't know. You must have made 50 million out of that. He said, no. You must have made 30 million out of that. I said, no. You must have made 15 million. He says, maybe.
My God.
That's quite interesting, because, listen, it's a golden rule, People make less money than you think.
Oh, sure.
They just do. And they're very often paying off what the previous record didn't make and so forth. It's very rarely a clear payday, and also monies take years to come through, It's very rarely that somebody arrives with a check saying, here's $50 million, that record you made 2 years ago is you've made this amount of money out of it. It won't work like that.
Well, REM signing to Warner's, there were moments, weren't there, when people suddenly, because you're just simply doing a record deal.
Yeah, but that's predictive. That's predictive. That's different. That's not what you've earned. That's what they think you might earn back for them.
It's an advance, I guess, isn't it?
It's an advance.
Yeah.
You see, and this is, without disappearing down the kind of streaming Spotify, rabbit hole again, bands used to live on advances. Not what they got, not royalty statement. It was advances. It was go and sign to a new record company. They'll give you an advance to make 3 albums. Okay. And out of that, you've got to make the record tour and you've got to do this, that, and the other. And so you got those sums of money because record companies were having a punt that you would be one of the handful who would make it in the next 2 years. In most cases, they never earned back those advances at all. I haven't heard anybody rushing to pay the money back, Whereas now it's different because you only get paid at the end of the day.
Yeah, that was the joy about being booted off a label. It often meant that your debts would evaporate, wouldn't they?
Well, it could do.
Good thing.
It could get more complicated than that. So anyway, that's Peter Watts's book about Denmark Street, which is out now.
And we should mention we've got various events coming up too, haven't we? We've got 21 Soho. We are doing, 2 things actually, aren't we? We've got one on the 30th of October with Ian Brodie of the Lightning Seeds talking about his memoir, and John Higgs talking about his fantastic book about the KLF.
Yes.
That'll be good. And we've got another one we've just announced. It's going to be a punk double bill with Glenn Matlock and another speaker to be announced shortly. Which he's also got a fantastic, and we're right around the corner actually from where the Pistols used to live. Used to live in Denmark Street.
Denmark Street.
250 yards away.
Absolutely.
In a house that I now notice being is a listed building, and they've preserved even Johnny Rotten's cartoons and caricatures on the wall. Amazing. So that's good. And
it's just around the corner from Kirsty McCall's bench in Soho Square as well. So it's, it's full of reasons to visit if you haven't got one already. And full details are below.
This is a junction in the word podcast. It separates that bit from this next bit.
Okay, welcome to Correspondence Corner. We've heard That sounded like Cyril Fletcher on That's Life. Do you remember that? I am indebted to Mrs. Grimshaw from Grimsby for the following.
Did Cyril Fletcher wear the bow tie? He did.
He did. Kenny MacDonald in Glasgow has had a dilemma, which is that he's run out of space on his... is it an iPhone or an iPod? It's an iPod, Kenny. He plugged it into his laptop and discovered he didn't have enough room for all the music he wanted to put on there. So he says, I spent a long afternoon agonizing, Mark, about what to do about T2's It'll All Work Out in Boomland.
Do I really need that second Donna's album?
Yeah, and what about Faroe Islands songwriter Tatur? His 2 albums are actually pretty good and remained in place. I'm only going to say one thing to you, Kenny. When you were about 14, 15, first getting involved in enthused about pop music, did you ever think you would be using the expression agonized about your relationship with it? Do you ever feel the record collection may be owning you rather than you owning the record collection? But other people may have had similar experiences. If so, we want to hear about them. Paul Kent in Eastbourne is following up to what we were talking about the other week about people who were in the light of the death of David McCullum, who became a sex symbol through playing Ilya Kuryakin in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and we were listing similar actors that said for whom similar things had gone on. He says, how about Scottish actor Douglas Henschel as an unlikely sex symbol for his role as Jimmy Perez in Shetland? I haven't seen it myself. Mark, have you ever seen that?
Oh, yeah, it's great. It's fantastic.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for that.
Yeah, the guy who plays Jimmy Perez has just stepped down, and my wife is mortified.
Oh, well, there you go.
I know, so I'm relieved, but
that proves the point.
It'd be good.
And Don Lorimer, all the way from Bainbridge Island in Washington State, in the United States. We were talking about smoking on album sleeves, and he pointed out that, of course, Dan Hicks and his
yes,
made an album, Striking It Rich, that was very much in the shape of a
which I have upstairs, a book of matches. Yeah, and actually got a little striker at the bottom. I've got it upstairs, I think.
It's got a strike pad at the bottom, which, if memory serves, I think actually worked. But that was it's about 50 years ago.
Yeah.
I actually heard it. Well, thanks for that. And Ellie, via email, thinks it should be misogynistic, not misogynistic. Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. Thanks for that. Thanks for everybody's comments, contributions. Please keep them coming. Keep them coming, as they say on the radio. Do you know what I was thinking in the light of the terrible news events of the last week? Which is, am I surprised or am I not surprised? There doesn't appear to have been, or if there has been one, I haven't come across it, any kind of music business response.
No, there's been no kind of fundraising anthem or protest song or anything like that, which there normally is, isn't there?
You would have thought so, but maybe I'm thinking, 20, 30 years ago. But
but also, this is a very, very, very complicated story, isn't it?
But so are all tragedies. They're all terribly complicated stories. And I'll tell you the only thought I had about it today, turning it over in my mind. I wonder if the rise of social media has just completely usurped pop music's ancient function as being the kind of town crier over.
Yeah, it was, because it was one of the first to react, wasn't it? That's right.
It always was, And what pop music used to say, I'm thinking about, I don't know, Ohio by Neil Young, or, Do They Know It's Christmas, or I don't know. I'm sure we can think of loads of other examples. What they always seemed to be saying was, do you realize this is going on? Whereas nowadays, it's pretty plain that people realize this is going on. Their interpretations may be very different, but they're not short of information about anything.
No, you're required to have a reaction to it, an interpretation of the events, rather than just announce it's happening, aren't you?
Yeah, and kind of everybody responds
because Emmett Till
within the first 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas it didn't used to be like that, and I wonder if we will ever see that kind of musical response again.
Because we were talking yesterday, weren't we, about Barry Maguire's Eve of Destruction?
Absolutely.
And that, Eve of Destruction, of which, if the button is pushed, there's no running away, there'll be no one to save with the world in a grave, etc. About the Eastern River and the Eastern world is exploding. Isn't that the first line?
That's the first line of it.
But I
keep thinking about that line all the time.
Incredible. And I can remember that record coming out and being absolutely terrified by it. I was 11 years old.
This is 60 years ago, nearly, that it came out. And, of course, written by P.F. Sloan, wasn't it? I think it was. It was a hit from Barry McGuire, written by P.F. Sloan. And you kind of thinking that you could dust it off nowadays. But there's
unbelievable. I can remember lying in bed and thinking, picturing the kind of bony fingers of some evil dictator stretching out towards a nuclear button and thinking, Church Crookham down the road is going to disappear in a molten fireball, and I'll be next. God. Oh, it was terrible. Really.
Do you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Yeah.
I do. I can remember having a woodwork class during the Cuban Missile Crisis and looking out the window. I don't know what I was looking for at all. I was 11 years old or something at the time. And but it sticks with you, those kind of things,
They were so chilling.
Absolutely. And of course, nothing more chilling than what's been going on in the last week. Really, nothing more chilling at all.
And the most chilling aspect of that, I think, was the terrible massacre at the festival. Because we can all imagine, can't we? Our own kids at an event like that. It's just absolutely mortifying. I've never felt so connected with what was going on. Normally, the events in wars seem distant and hard to picture, but that was just frightful.
Well, they all involve kids, don't they? All
yeah.
That's why.
You're listening to the Word Podcast, where the time is whenever you want it to be.
So coming to London this weekend, the Celebration Tour with Madonna, 3 nights at O2, one more in December. There was a brilliant moment on the Today programme this morning. Everybody listening heard it, where Abel Rajan was talking about Taylor Swift's new movie, and he said, Taylor Swift has inherited the mantle of Maradona. He went on for a while. Michelle Hussein said, I hadn't been aware of the breadth of her talents. I think you possibly mean Madonna.
Did he say by mistake?
He said Maradona, yeah. Of Maradona.
That's extraordinary.
And I thought, how long is he going to keep going before somebody chips in here?
Good grief, that would have been pretty much straight away back at the
I know, it would have been amazing.
That's extraordinary.
But there was a brilliant, their PR firm, the PR firm that represents Madonna, sent an email around this afternoon which both Dave and I got. And I thought it was really clever, actually. It was just all about numbers, wasn't it? It was all statistics, and it's been picked up. I just had a look about an hour later. It's been picked up all over the place. People and Billboard, and I think the New York Times and whatever. It's all things like stats from, Madonna's upcoming tour. 8 humidifiers in her dressing room. 3 traveling mobile gyms. 3 physical therapists. 40 pairs of boxing gloves. 24 on-stage performers, including 4 of her own children. There's a great one. 50 merchandise items, including vintage recreations of iconic items from previous tours, such as the Blonde Ambition bomber jacket. It's a brilliant idea. You're going to a concert, and the main thing is not just to see the show, but to try and spend even more money buying a vintage bomber jacket from a previous tour. And there was one bit about Madonna is transported around the arena in an illuminated portal frame 30 foot off the ground that acts as a time machine, allowing her to move at 1.5 feet a second, 80 foot across and 130 foot down the length of the arena, designed to symbolize, in case you missed this, Dave, looking into the past, the present, and towards the future. I thought it was a brilliant bit of PR, though. Because that's what in the old days, if you went on about that kind of stuff, it would be seen as being an indication of absurd and non-carbon neutral, wasteful self-indulgence. And now it's kind of, this is value for money. This is what you're paying for. Well, this is spectacle.
It's certainly what you're paying for, because there is no mention, I think I'm right in saying, anywhere in anything you just read out of anything to do with music.
No,
it's entirely to do with the show and the scale
of it.
And I think I'm right in saying there's no band on this tour, isn't there?
I don't know. Maybe not.
No. The musical director gave an interview that there's no band on stage, and she'll be singing to the backing tracks of her old hits. And that's got to be just
karaoke,
just a gnat's away from miming, hasn't it? For God's sake, surely. And
which was the great controve with her, wasn't it? In the late 1980s, wasn't it? You remember that? Or was it in the 90s? Was it, Madonna can't sing and dance? Which do you want her to do?
Well, this is it. You see, if I went to see Madonna, do I desperately want her to sing? I don't know, really. You just want the show, don't you? That's what you want. Yeah. I probably wouldn't complain at all, and I just wonder if this is the way things are going, isn't it, really? That music's a bit of an optional extra, really, at the end of the day.
Well, Lady Gaga always used to make a big point of the fact that she was singing live, partly, I think, to point up the fact that it was rumoured that Madonna possibly wasn't. So I think that was a deliberate gesture. I know.
I think it's one of the things where it isn't one of the stats on that list how many people are in the tour party. Is it 200 people?
200 people, yeah.
200 people. Well, when we were talking to
25
Nick Banks,
in the costume department.
We were talking to Nick Banks from Pulp, as we said, we talked to him this week. It's very interesting because they were talking to him about that picture of Pulp and their touring party at the end of their most recent tour. And it was interesting because it demonstrated just how many people are involved in a show nowadays. And I think he said there was 60, or I think maybe even more.
Yeah, I think it was,
60.
yeah.
And that's, they're not tiny, but it's just Pulp. It's not Pink Floyd. It's not, it's not Madonna. Because he was talking about this whole thing that people want a show nowadays. And a show tends to be mainly assessed in visual terms, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's when people go to the West End, they don't talk about how good the script is, or they talk about the bangs and the spectacle and the fireworks that go off and the moments of transformation, all those kind of things. They're now baked in to popular music, completely baked in.
Baked in also so that people can take photographs of them and tweet them, and the self-publicity element of that is enormous.
But it's also scale, isn't it? You see, because if you're playing, if you're not playing something intimate, you're playing something that has to be as huge as possible, really. There's nothing in between. You either get close enough to see the whites of their eyes, or you get far enough away to be impressed by the massive, great jumbo screens at the back and so forth, and what you can see on those things. It's a fascinating difference.
But also, you've got to give the impression that you're doing something more spectacular than all your rivals, haven't you?
Of course you do.
Because, her whole thing is you've got Rihanna and you've got Lady Gaga and you've got Taylor Swift, and you've got Beyonce, and she's kind of got to come back and remind people who used to be in charge.
So, I mean, if you're Madonna, you're touring this week, you're in London this weekend, I'm sorry. You must be looking at the news about the incredible fuss about Taylor Swift's in-concert movie and thinking to yourself, I'm done. I've just been completely outflanked by the younger generation here, because she is setting new standards, isn't she?
Well, what's the figure for the bookings already? Is it something in the region of nearly 100 million just in bookings?
People to go and watch a movie. Of a show? Of a show that's still touring, kind of thing.
No, it is touring for another year.
With another year. You've got...
These are the people who can't get to see the show.
You've got cities and countries lobbying to be included on the itinerary because of the economic boost to the locality that would be involved in having a Taylor Swift show there that weekend. It's absolutely extraordinary. Nobody's been at that scale before. This is a completely new scale. I don't think there's anything compares to it at all. I mean, Beatlemania and so forth But it was quite small scale, because the business wasn't geared up to take advantage of their popularity. So they never got
flying hundreds of miles and booking hotels, were they? And going out for dinner. They
weren't getting to do. They weren't playing places as big as that, being filmed, doing shows as big as that. And Madonna wasn't either, and Michael Jackson, his pomp, wasn't either. This is just absolutely, genuinely astonishing. And I'm amazed she has the kind of, the stamina for it. You know what I mean? Because she would have thought at some point, you think, well, I've done enough of this. I want to go away and make a new record or make a film.
Yeah,
God knows what. I tell you. Oh, yeah, just
read P.G. Woodhouse.
But she's clearly just driven like you've never seen before.
Well, it must be heartbreaking to feel that you're being outranked, mustn't it?
God, you're left behind, absolutely left behind. Anyway, talking of things from a long time ago, it was also this week 54 years since the release of In the Court of the Crimson King. To give it its full title, Mark, An Observation by King Crimson.
An observation, precisely.
That was what it was called.
Yeah.
So it came out in 1969 and was immediate sensation on the basis of, well, it was the record that hyped itself, really. The market hyped itself over that.
A lot of it's to do with the cover.
So much of it's to do with
the cover was so amazing.
And
you wonder what would have happened to it. It was designed by their old mate Barry Godbow, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think he died very, very soon after. He didn't just see it come out. I think he died a year later. Just imagine what that guy might have done. He might have been a new kind of Roger Dean figure. He might have worked with hypnosis or whatever. One sleeve.
I don't think he was even a designer. I think he was a computer science.
Do you know where the original painting of that is?
It's Robert Fripp's got it now. Yeah. He'd repossessed it from his management office where they'd left it in the sunlight.
That's right.
So it rather faded. But yes, he's.
See, I wouldn't you like to see that? It's funny. We've all seen the Mona Lisa, Dave. We've seen Girl with a Pearl Earring. We've seen The Birth of Venus. Would you or would you not be slightly more moved by seeing the original of that cover?
Oh, my God.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's just I've got such a connection with it.
Why has nobody done that at an art gallery doing an exhibition of the original artworks for loads of legendary covers? I suppose because they're lost. They're lost, aren't they? I mean, does the Sgt. Pepper original exist? No, it doesn't. I mean, there's photographs.
Well, no, that was a set, though, wasn't it?
It was a set, and then they photographed it.
Yeah, and then they took the set down, so it's not there.
You can't do that. I can't think of it. Dark Side of the Moon, same thing, really. All this stuff just got put in a folio afterwards and carried home by
Cat Stevens, the Joni Mitchells.
Oh, maybe
Bob
actually
Dylan's.
Paintings. Yes, Joni Mitchell paintings. You could certainly.
Nick Mason's relics. I don't know. There are a few, aren't there?
I suppose so. Yeah,
but I mean, it would be very hard to get them all together. But it would be very exciting. Self-portrait by Bob Dylan. It'd be very exciting to be in the same room as the actual original artwork.
Yeah, I'm sure.
What a good idea.
Say that. But anyway, so King Crimson, I mean, unique thing in that, it's a record that genuinely sold on the basis of its cover and its cover alone. And people later said that they it perfectly reflected the music. I'm not so sure if it's like that. I think what happens is the music grows to reflect the cover, because you just spend. In those days, you spend hours looking at the cover. And so the music became like a soundtrack to the cover.
Yeah.
Rather than the cover being the illustration that lifted the music. You know what I mean? It's like, to me, the music of the Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Street sounds like that cover looks.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating relationship between the artwork and the sound, isn't it? And it only exists in the world of the 12-inch LP. It doesn't exist in any other world at all.
And also, it was the first album that didn't have the name of the band on it. It didn't have the name of the record on it, did it? Didn't have anything on the cover at all. I don't think it did. It's just the picture.
No, yeah.
So that in itself, I remember as being pretty astonishing, really.
Yes.
A group you've never heard of. So the mystery about them just grew.
No, but I think at the time UK came out, you had heard of them. Because they were everywhere. In 1969, they were everywhere. They supported the Rolling Stones at Hyde Park. There were ads taken in the music papers where the likes of Pete Townsend were talking about how amazing it was. And so if you were kind of in the market for a record like that, you knew all about it. You really knew all about it. And also not how many records came out. So you go to your local record shop, and the way that Isla just promoted it was they just handed out loads of spare covers to record shops.
And they stuck them in the window.
They just stuck them in the window.
I remember that.
They were all over the windows. And I think it was Will Birch sent me a tweet this week when I was talking about it. He said that Rhett Davis, who later went on to produce Roxy Music, he used to be the manager of some record shop, some Harlequin, I think, in the West End. And he got a load of these covers and arranged them in the window. And he placed a joint in the mouth. Whoa, we were amused.
Oh, that was of the moment, wasn't it?
Oh, God, it was of the moment, definitely.
What wild and crazy guys we were.
But here's the other thing about King Crimson. That, well, they're still going, really, aren't they? Or are they just
very much still going, yeah.
Okay, it's still going. They never made a record bigger than that, did they?
So it's been a very gradual decline ever since.
It's talk about manager decline. They all say this in business. You say this in the world of magazines. You say you can make a fortune out of a declining title because, and this happens, it used to happen in the world of magazines. Forgive me for a moment while I wax nostalgic. If a magazine had taken years to build up its subscription base, it would take a long time for that subscription base to go away.
Melody Maker being the best example.
No, not a subscription title at all. No, tend down on monthlies.
In terms of its reputation, really.
I'll tell you the classic case of this. Matt Snow, our old colleague Matt Snow, told me this years ago, that he once, after he ceased working with us, he did a variety of jobs, and one of them was he was at Haymarket, who published the Gramophone. And the Gramophone was and still is, the kind of classical music Bible, strong on reviews, all these kind of things. And he told me that at any given time, 10% of the subscribers to the Gramophone were dead because they were very often, they were retired headmasters, is who they were, right? And when they died, their widows just couldn't face cancelling the subscription. So it kept coming for a year or so, and then they'd stop the subscription. Well,
such a big part of your life. Exactly.
Absolutely. So that's managed decline. You can carry on making money out of something, even though its popularity is declining, because the intensity of its popularity amongst a declining number of people grows. Therefore, they spend more money on the product. So people who go and see King Crimson nowadays may not be quite as legion as they were in 1970, but they're spending a lot more money to do it.
Well, I went to see them, whatever it was, 7 or 8 years ago, I think, in London. And of course, what was the last song they played? Had to be 21st Century Schizoid Man. So not only are you managing a decline, you're also ending with the song, pretty much the first song.
Well, you started with.
You very much started with, but not that any of them minded, because it's still fantastic.
Absolutely. Best of luck to them.
Yeah.
Best of luck to them. They've done it brilliantly.
This podcast was brought to you by The Word.